welcome to Bluewater Technical. I'm Trent Verdon, Technical Specialist for Bluewater USA Incorporated. Today we're going to be talking about installing our Bluewater purifiers. I'm going to talk about some of the tools that you might need, the actual installation process, and we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to start with the tools first. So some of the things that you might need to do the installation you probably already have around your house. We're going to start with some of the basics. And these are things you probably do have. Things like a pair of pliers. You've got maybe a set like this here. These are a channel lock brand. They have what they call groove lock pliers or adjustable pliers. They're perfect for installing the system here. This is another pair, different brand. They have a button here that you push to adjust those pliers. You might need an adjustable wrench. So adjustable wrench like this. Some people call it a crescent wrench, adjustable jaw wrench. You're going to need one of these or something similar. You might need a set of screwdrivers. So regular set of screwdrivers with Phillips and flathead tips. Or you could use one of these screwdrivers like this that has replaceable tips on it. You can remove or replace the tips to the type of tip that you need at the moment. This one here ratchets with the handle, and then it also has a storage in the end of it for your additional tips. The other thing you might need is a razor knife. So I've got two different types here. One is just a standard utility knife that you might see or you might have around the house. It just slides the blade up. You're going to need one of those, or you could be using one of these like this folding knife. It actually has a folding feature, the blade here, and I can use this not just for opening boxes and cutting, but for cutting tubing and other things. And then you're probably going to need some sort of light. I keep a little pen light in my tool bag. This little pen light works great. You can use your phone if you have the flashlight feature on your phone, or you could use a rechargeable one such as this here. This one here has a rechargeable battery that also matches my cordless drill. And then you're going to need some Teflon tape. So these are two rolls or examples of Teflon tape. This one is white and then this one is gray. And really it doesn't matter what color it is as long as it's a thread sealing tape. And you want to use probably a 1/2 inch wide tape. And you can get this at your local hardware store. Any of these tools you probably either have on hand in your home, or you can get them very readily at your local hardware store. Now, some of the specialty things that you might want to have around when installing the purifier, but not absolutely necessary, but make things a little easier, is there's certain types of wrenches that they have available at your hardware stores. Like this one here is made by Rigid. It's designed to fit the 3/8 inch compression fittings and the 1/2 inch compression fittings that you would find on a standard angle stop or shutoff valve that's underneath your kitchen sink. Next, you might need an open-end wrench. So you might have this in your mechanics tool chest. It's an open-end wrench or a spanner wrench or a box wrench. It's called many different things. It has both an open end and a closed end. This is great for tightening up the nut on the bottom of the faucet when you install it. And its counterpart, I have a ratchet wrench. So this ratchet wrench actually has a ratcheting closed end. So I can put this on the faucet bottom and I can move it very easily. It's great for those really tight spots underneath the sink where you might not have room to turn that wrench very easily. Not necessary, but great to have around. One of the other things that I keep around is a tubing cutter. This one here has a jaw that opens up. You put your tubing right in here and you close that and it snips the tubing very, very easily. I've got a piece of tubing here I can show you really quick. So you just put the tubing right in there and see it just pops the tubing right in half. It's really, really good to have around. If you don't have that tubing cutter, you can also use this folding razor knife. If you have one of these, I open it up and I hold it like this with the blade sitting away from me and straight up and down. And then I set the tubing right on the blade, just like so. And then I just close that knife on the blade, and it cuts that tubing very easily. So just a handy thing, and this is really my preferred tool of choice. I use this almost exclusively when cutting tubing on jobs and installs. It's just very easy to have that tool handy and around, and it clips on my belt. So really good. Some of the other things you might need to have when installing, you may not, or you may, depending on your kitchen and what you have available in your kitchen. But one of the things that you might need is a drill, a cordless drill. This one here is actually a cordless drill. It uses the same batteries that my little rechargeable light uses. And it's got a 1/2 inch chuck, so you can put in different size drill bits up to 1/2 inch in there. This one here is an impact driver. You may have an impact driver with different types of bits that just insert in the end of it, and that's fine for the smaller tasks that you have to do to perform the installation process. But if you have to drill a hole in your sink, or you have to drill a hole in your countertop, you may need something a little bit larger. And I have this 12 volt or 18 volt cordless drill that I keep on hand. It's a really great tool to keep on hand, and it's a much more powerful drill. And that's what you may need if you're drilling a hole through a countertop or through a kitchen sink. And then, of course, you might need a set of drill bits. You may have these already. This is a full set that has a number of different sizes, all in the set together. This one goes up to 1/2 inch. You shouldn't need anything more than 1/2 inch to do what we're doing here today. And then you may have one of these. This is called a Veribit, and it's a really great tool. A lot of electricians carry these, but it is what they call a Veribit or a step bit, and it has multiple sizes of drill bits all built into one tool. You just keep drilling down until you reach the size that you want, all the way up to, this one goes up to 3/4 inch. Starts out with 3/16 and goes all the way up to 3/4 inch. Great tool to have, kind of expensive, but not necessary again. And then I wanted to show you some of the process. Most of our systems have these fittings made by John Guest. They're what they call a push lock fitting. And when you're installing our tubing in these fittings, it's very easy to do. You just insert the tubing, you push it together as far as it'll go, and then when you pull that back out, it locks that tubing in place, and it will not come out. See, I can pull on that, it won't come out. If you need to remove it for some reason, you just push the tubing forward, put your fingers on that little ring that's right here on the edge of the fitting, and that tubing will pull right out. So very easy to insert and pull out, and if you need to remove it for some reason, you've got the ease of that operation of these fittings. They're great fittings to have in our equipment, and all of our equipment uses those John Guest fittings, so really easy to operate. Last but not least, I want to touch on safety. Of course, it's always of utmost importance. So I just wanted to say, if you're operating a cordless drill or power tool, make sure you have some earplugs around that you can use while operating those power tools. You might need a pair of gloves to have on, especially when doing the cutting and drilling and things with wrenches and things. It just keeps you from pinching your fingers and hands and cutting yourself. And then last but not least, the most important thing are safety glasses. So always keep a pair of safety glasses around and use them and wear them while you're doing installation process. So that's it for the tools today, and I think we'll go on to installing the purifier now. Now we're going to talk about installing your Bluewater Spirit water purifier. As you can see, I've got a new Spirit right here in the box, and I'm going to open up this box and show you what comes with your Bluewater Spirit purifier and how to install it. So I've got the box open now, and I'm going to talk about what comes in that box. So as soon as you open it up, you're going to see this piece of paper, and this is a packing list that shows you everything that this purifier should come with in the box. I'm going to pull the packing off the top of the purifier, set it aside, and then I've got this empty cardboard box that is tucked down beside the Spirit that is just empty packing. We'll set that aside. On the other side, we've got this cardboard box here that has your install kit in it. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we can pull the purifier out of the box. So we pull the Spirit out of the box. You're going to see it comes with a plastic bag over the top of it. We're going to pull that plastic bag off, set it aside, and you can see the purifier now. So we've got our logo and label here on the top. On the front here, you've got your service and filter indication lights, as well as the power indication. On the front bottom here, you've got your access to your filter on the front of the unit. Now, you'll also see, if you look really closely there, here's the power light, but there beside the service and the filter indications, there's two small holes right here and right here, and those are the reset functions, reset buttons for these two lights. So if your service indicator ever came on for some reason, you can reset that by inserting like a ballpoint pen or a paper clip into that hole and resetting it. Or if your filter indicator comes on and you need to reset that after you change your filter, that little hole right there, insert like a paper clip inside there and push the button, and that resets your filter indicator. So let's go to the back of the unit, and on the back you'll see all of our connections that we have to install the unit. On the top here, you've got a John Guest fitting. It's got a little piece of tubing in it. We want to just pull that tubing off of there. There's a little washer that holds that tubing in place. You push that washer up against the unit and pull this tubing out, and this is just strictly for packing. We can discard that or keep it later for packing if you needed to move it for some reason. And then the washer itself can get set aside as well. Then you've got your drain line. So this gray hose is your wastewater line or your drain line that goes to your drain under your sink. Inside of that hose is a little red cap, so you'll need to pull that red plug out of that hose before you install this. And then you've got your inlet feed water. So this red cap here is your feed water supply, and inside of there is a little screen that catches trash and things that might come in from the city. So if for some reason this unit ever had a service issue or low pressure for some reason, you might need to check that screen and see if it has any trash or things, debris or anything like that on that screen, and that's there to protect the pump. Then this red gasket or this red cap can just get set aside because we're going to install our feed water line onto that fitting. And then you're also going to see the electrical plug or the cord coming off the back of the unit. This is for a standard 120 volt 3-prong outlet. So those are all the connections on the back of the Spirit and all the information on the front of the unit. So let's go ahead and talk about our install kit. So this box here has our install kit. We open this up. You'll see a number of different things. First, you're going to see the warranty card. And of course, you'll want to fill this out in its entirety after you install the unit and mail this back to Bluewater. It does have a place to put a stamp here and put this in the mail. If you don't want to send this exposed, you can drop it into an envelope and mail it to us that way. Or if you want to scan it in and email it to us, that's acceptable as well. So we start talking about the install components. We've got some hose. There's two different pieces of tubing or hose that are inside this box. This one here is your feed water supply tubing. It has two nuts on the end here, and these are 3/4 inch BSP or British Standard Pipe Thread. They also use a gasket to seal properly, and this is what you might use to attach the back of your Spirit to feed it with water supply. But this hose may not be necessary depending on how you install it. So we're going to set this aside. Go to the next piece of tubing. This will be for your permeate or your product water, the purified water coming out of the unit. It has a little elbow there to make it easy to plug into the back of the unit and have plenty of clearance on the back. And this is for your purified water. You have this gray U-shaped or horseshoe-shaped attachment here that is for your drain line. So the gray drain hose coming off the back of the Spirit will loop up and through this horseshoe in your cabinet, and this gets screwed to the wall of your cabinet up above the bottom of your sink. So if this was the bottom of your sink, this would be up above it like this on the wall of the cabinet, and then your drain hose will go up and through this horseshoe and then back down to your waste piping or your drain. It also comes with a little packet here, a plastic Ziploc bag that has a number of different items in it. It carries the gaskets that are for the feed water hose we talked about just a minute ago. It also has a fitting that would, in essence, take the place of that feed water hose. So if you don't want to use this hose and adapt it, then you would use this fitting, and this screws directly onto the feed water supply port on the back of the Spirit, and that converts it directly to a push lock John Guess or a push lock fitting here, 3/8. And so you would use just standard 3/8 tubing to connect your equipment at that point, and this would be really obsolete. You're also going to have this John Guess feed water or angle stop valve. This angle stop valve is designed to connect directly onto your angle stop or your shut-off valve under your sink that supplies cold water to your existing faucet. You just take the supply line off of your faucet, directly off of that angle stop. This screws directly to the angle stop, and then your supply line to your faucet goes right back to the top here and screws back on. And then that supplies you with a water supply going to your Spirit. So you have a shut-off here dedicated to the Spirit, for only the Spirit. And that is a push lock fitting, so you can just use 3/8 inch John Guess tubing or 3/8 tubing of any sort to go from here to your Spirit to feed it with city water. In this plastic bag as well, you're going to see a faucet connector, which is a push lock fitting as well. That screws directly to the bottom of your faucet to convert to push lock. It has two gaskets, two small black gaskets. Those are for this feed water hose. They fit inside of these 3/4 inch fittings here, and that's what seals. So this doesn't typically use thread sealant. It uses this gasket to seal that fitting. And if you're not using this, then you won't need these two gaskets. You can set those aside. You're also going to see a hose clamp. So this stainless steel hose clamp will go on the drain hose where it connects to your drain under your sink. And that tighten that down and that seals properly. You're going to see your owner's manual or user's manual. that will give you some installation instructions and some service instructions as well. We have a filter wrench. This will be used to open up the filter housing and change your filters. So you need to keep this close by, set it next to your unit, on top of your unit, or something like that. Finally, you're going to see the faucet. So this is the faucet in the box. The units before 2020 will have this style faucet in it. It's going to have the chrome faucet. You open that up, you've got two components here. You've got your base, your faucet base, and your spout. That spout will insert into the top of that faucet base down till it stops. Then this just tightens down, so now that faucet is ready to install. This base will be separate, and you'll need to put that onto the bottom of the faucet as well. And then it comes with this little bag that has a washer that will go underneath your sink, on the faucet stem, as well as the nut to tighten it down onto the sink, and a little lock washer for that as well. So this is an important packet. Make sure these all stay together, and you'll need these when you go to install this faucet on your sink. And then last, you have your faucet connector that we talked about a second ago, but it is a push lock fitting that screws directly onto the bottom of your faucet. And you just get that hand tight, and then take a wrench and do a quarter turn to tighten it down. And once you do that quarter turn, it should seal properly and be ready for tubing to be inserted. But this doesn't require any Teflon tape or any thread sealant to seal it properly. It has a little gasket inside there that's designed to do just that. And so you just put it directly on the faucet once you've installed your faucet. So that's everything inside the install kit and the box. So we've got everything. We're ready to go. Let's go install our Spirit. Now we're going to start installing our water purifier under our sink. Before we get under the sink though, let's talk about some of the fittings that you're going to see when you open up those cabinet doors. I wanted to talk about some of the piping that you have underneath the sink. One of the things that you're probably going to see is this little item. This is called a P-trap, and I call it that because it's shaped like a P, and it traps water in this little weir or U-shaped bend, and that keeps gases from coming up and escaping your piping. This is probably the most common thing you're going to see underneath your sink. This is made from a tubular PVC, a very thin-walled PVC is what that is, plastic, and it's easy to cut. So if you had to replace this or something like it under your sink, you could find this at your local hardware store. One of the things you might see is this piece, and this is called a tail piece, and you can see that it's got a little flange right here at the top, a flat rim, and that is designed to set up against your sink. So your basket strainer or your drain is here, and then this piece connects to the bottom of that drain, and then this nut goes up and tightens down onto the basket strainer, and there's usually a little gasket that goes right here. And this nut could be brass or galvanized, or it could be plastic like this. So that's a tail piece, and they come in different lengths and different materials. You can cut this to any different length, and you might see something like this. And this is a stainless steel tail piece. See, it's still got that same rim at the top, but it's made out of stainless steel. You may see this made out of brass. It may be a brass chrome-plated piece, or it may just be copper. So many different materials on a tail piece. Now, a lot of the fittings that you're going to see are going to have these nuts, and this is a compression nut, and this is a cone washer. And this is your sealing process that they use to connect these fittings. So this is your tail piece. You might see this nut placed on like this, and then this cone washer would go on like that, slide right on. And as you can see, this cone washer has a taper. So that tapered edge always goes toward the fitting that you're connecting to, and this flat edge always goes towards this nut. So that nut would come down and push against that washer, cone washer, and tighten down and force that cone washer into the joint and seal the joint. Now, you might see one of these. This is an extension piece, and it has a slip joint. This one has a slip joint on both ends. And they call it a slip joint because something like this would slip into that joint, and then that cone washer, see, fits against that, and then this nut tightens down and seals that joint. Now this extension piece could be cut. You don't have to use both ends. You could cut it, and you could use both pieces separately. You can cut this to any length that you want. But this doesn't have to be really, really tight. You can get this hand tight and then just snug it up with a pair of pliers, and that should be adequate to seal it. It doesn't require any Teflon tape or sealant to be able to seal that properly. The next thing we're going to talk about is these two little items here. Now, you might need one of these when you're installing your Spirit or Pro water purifiers. And these are what the drain from the Spirit or Pro would connect to. They are also similar to the extension pieces, so you can see they have a slip joint here at the top, and then on the bottom there's a tail piece, and then you've got this 3/4 inch side inlet that is your drain connection. And these are designed for dishwashers, so a dishwasher would connect here, but it can be used for the Spirit very easily. It's the same type of hose. This one is a little bit different. This is called a direct connect piece. So this directly connects to the bottom of your sink or the basket strainer, the drain. So this would connect directly to that, and it's got the nut built in, and then it's got your tailpiece here and your side inlet, your 3/4 inch side inlet. So very important to have these possibly for your Spirit or Pro installations. You might see a hose similar to this underneath there. These are your supply hoses for your hot and cold water to your faucet. We're mainly concerned with the cold water supply line, but this is probably going to be connected to one of these valves. Now this is an angle stop valve. It's got a handle on one side. It's got a 3/8 inch compression fitting here, and it's got a 1/2 inch compression here. Now that 3/8 compression is designed to attach 3/8 copper tubing to that, or 3/8 poly tubing. You can see that 3/8 nut comes off, and then there's a little brass ring that's inside of there. Now that little brass ring is what you would use for copper tubing. If you're using plastic tubing, you don't want to use this brass ring. You would want to use something like this here. This is a plastic ring, so much the same thing, but it's a plastic ring that you would use for the plastic tubing. Now, if you have a braided line like this, it's going to connect directly to this angle stop without the additional nut and ring or any of the other fittings, and this tightens down onto that angle stop just like that. Now this side connects to the main copper line or the main house tubing, and then this is your cold water side feeding your faucet, and then this is your handle to shut the water off. And so this is called an angle stop or a supply shut off. Many different terms for it, but most commonly it's called an angle stop. Now, we supply in our kit an angle stop valve, which is a direct fit connection to this valve. So this valve would attach directly to this angle stop, just like that, and it gives you an outlet for your Cleone or Spirit, and a shutoff valve for that purifier. And then it supplies you a connection at the top for this tubing coming from your main sink faucet to connect directly back onto the top. So now you've got your angle stop, you've got your angle stop valve that we supply, and then you've got your kitchen sink faucet, cold water supply going up to your faucet. So that's what it should look like when it's installed under your sink. You can also get, there's other fittings like this Easy T. This is much the same as the angle stop valve we just looked at. It screws directly onto that angle stop, and it gives you a compression fitting that goes out this way and a compression fitting that goes up this way. You would connect your faucet here and then your purifier here, but that doesn't give you a shutoff. So we recommend you use the one that we provide in our box, in our install kit. You might see some fittings like this, or might have to use some fittings like these. These are John Guest fittings or push lock fittings, and a tubing would insert directly into that. So you've got your John Guest tubing and your fitting, and you just push it in. This one is what we call a reducer T, so it's 3/8 here and then 1/4 inch here, and this might be what you use to connect your ice maker to your refrigerator off of your water purifier. So that's the fittings that you might see. And then lastly, you might see some tubing. There's different types of tubing that you might see. This is a blue made by John Guest. This is a white made by John Guest. This is all really the same material, and it's the same size. This is 3/8. The Cleone will come with 1/4 inch of this same tubing. And then this is something that you might get at your local hardware store, which is a polyethylene. It's a little more transparent or translucent, and it's a little different material called polyethylene, but it does the same thing and works the same way. It fits in to all the same fittings. Now, one of the things I want to touch on when you're connecting this to a compression fitting, if you're connecting this to a connection like the compression fitting, and you're using one of these compression valves, compression nuts, so you got your compression nut, and then you want to use this little plastic ring, slide that on. There's an insert piece that you should insert into here, and sometimes they're plastic, sometimes they are brass, but you would want to use that insert piece inside of this tubing because that gives it the support it needs to keep this tubing from collapsing. And then once you get the insert in and the sleeve on, you can insert that into the fitting, and then this nut will tighten down. Make sure that that cone washer, that the cone or the tapered edge always faces towards the fitting that you're attaching it to. So, important notes. All right, so let's get to installing our water purifier under our sink. Well, first we're going to talk about connecting our faucet. So we're going to install our faucet on our sink. This particular sink is a stainless steel sink. It has what they call, it's a 3-hole sink, or I'm sorry, this one's a 4-hole sink because it has 4 holes pre-cut into the sink into which you would install your faucet, a soap dispenser like this one, or a dishwasher air gap like this. In my case, I installed my water purifier faucet on the far left here, and I had to drill that hole in order to do that. So now we have what we call a 5-hole sink, or it may come with a 5-hole setup. It just depends on how they installed it in your home, when they put your countertops in or when they put your original plumbing in. You may have a granite countertop, and in that case you won't be able to drill that hole yourself. You'll probably have to hire a granite contractor to come in and drill that hole if you don't have somewhere else to put the faucet. If you have a Corian or a solid surface countertop, then you could drill that yourself with a standard drill and a standard drill bit, like we talked about in our tools earlier. And in that case, you could just drill a hole where you want that faucet to go. In this situation, I'm going to install an additional faucet. I already have the faucet here, but I'm going to take this out and put in another faucet so that you guys can see how to do that. The faucet that comes with the Cleone could either be that chrome one that you see on my sink now, or it could be this stainless steel one that comes with the current Cleone products. And I'm going to put this one on the faucet now, or on the sink. And since we already have the hole drilled, I can just show you how that goes in. But if you don't have a hole in your kitchen sink for the additional faucet, you could remove this air gap here. This is for your dishwasher. You could remove that and place your faucet where that air gap is. Or if you have, like this one, I have a soap dispenser right here, and if you don't really use the soap dispenser or don't think you need it, you could remove that soap dispenser and put your faucet where that soap dispenser is. So you've got several different options there that you could do. Or if you don't want to do any of that and you just want to stay with the one hole, some sinks only have one hole, you could use our tri-flow faucet that has our water purifier and kitchen faucet all built into one unit. So let's take that faucet out and let's install this one. So one of the things to note, you're going to see on the bottom of your faucet there's a gasket and then there's a nut. So we want to remove that nut off of the faucet, and then this washer will come off the faucet as well. So it's a big flat washer. They call it a fender washer sometimes. And then this gasket needs to stay, it needs to come off as well. And then you see it's got an O-ring on the bottom, and that will seal against your sink. And then these three items will go onto the faucet after we put it onto the countertop. So let's do that now. So now we're going to drill a hole in our kitchen sink for our faucet to go into. In this case, I already have a hole where my old faucet was, but I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. I'm going to be using my 18-volt cordless drill with my step bit, so it has various sizes on it. You could use a straight bit like this here, which is a 1/2 inch bit. You'll need at least a 1/2 inch hole. And then what I do is I usually take a paper towel and I wet it, and then I put the paper towel kind of around where I'm going to be drilling the hole, and I will take a marker and I'll measure out where I want that hole to be with the tape measure, mark it with the Sharpie here, just make a small dot where you want that hole to go. And typically these spacing between the faucets, the holes here, are 4 inches on center. So if you want that to be 4 inches on center, it would be more in this position, and that's fine. I like mine a little further away from my kitchen sink faucet, so I put it over to the left just about 8 inches. Now I'm going to drill part of that hole. I just put that onto the dot where I marked it, and then drill that, and drill that down until I get to a 1/2 inch hole on my step bit, or if you're using the standard 1/2 inch bit. And then what that does is I put this paper towel around that hole just to kind of keep those metal shavings from flying out and getting all over the countertop. And that gives you the ability to just kind of pull that paper towel like this and pick up all those shavings really, really easy. And that paper towel needs to be kind of wet. And so now we got our hole drilled. So we're going to take our faucet. So our faucet here with the rubber ring here that would seal, and we're going to insert that faucet into the hole. Now once we get that faucet in the hole, we're going to take this washer here and this gasket. So there's a rubber gasket, and we're going to put the gasket on first. Underneath the sink, we're going to take that gasket and washer, and we're going to push it up until it hits the sink itself. And then we're going to put the nut back on, and we're going to tighten that nut down as far as we can in order to seal it. So I'm going to drop that in place now, just like so. So that's the way it should look once it's installed. Now I'm going to go underneath here, and I'm going to put the nut and washer on, and then I will also install this faucet adapter fitting that comes with the faucet, comes with the installation kit, and that will tie directly onto the bottom of that faucet. So let's get down below and let's install the bottom of the faucet. So now, while you're tightening down this faucet, you may need to have someone hold the top of the faucet and hold it tight or in place. And then you can reach underneath. And you can do this by yourself if you have long enough arms. But you could have your spouse or someone or your kid hold that faucet and then tighten up the nut on the bottom until you get it all the way up and tight. And that faucet is in place. So you may need some assistance to do that, but there's our faucet installed now. And now we're going to put the fitting on the bottom of it. So I'm going to go down below and put this fitting back on. Now we're going to install the fitting on the bottom of our faucet here. So we've got this faucet connector. We're going to just put it up there on the bottom of the faucet. I like to get that hand tight, just like that. And then you don't need to tighten it down extremely tight, but you want to put a wrench on that and probably give it a couple of good turns to snug it up onto the faucet bottom. And then once you get that tight, you're ready to go. And now we can install our faucet line to that faucet. We're looking at our drain here now, and we want to install this piece into our drain. But there's not a lot of options here. You know, we want this piece to go in here somewhere. I could put it here horizontally because I have enough space here, or I could put it here, but that changes this configuration. What I'm probably going to do is install it here, and then I'll move this P-trap over to meet this because this will go away, and we don't really need that. So I'm going to go ahead and take that apart. Now you're probably going to want to take a bowl of some sort, put it underneath the P-trap, so when you start taking this apart, you're going to get a little bit of water out of there. You want to catch that. I'm going to take this piece loose here. I'm going to take this piece loose. As you can see that's moving around now. I'm going to take this piece loose here. And then I can just drop that down. And I can empty this out into the bowl. So now I've got this piece out and loose. Now I want to keep this piece. This is what we call our trap or weir. We talked about that earlier. So I'm going to take that piece off. I'm going to take this nut off here and take the compression nut and ring with it. And I want to put this P-trap back on to the main drain. And so now I can move that P-trap anywhere I want. Okay? And I want to install this drain piece right there. So what I have to do is I have to keep this nut and washer on the top here. And this is going to slide up in there just like that. Okay, so now this P-trap will go on to the bottom of that tail piece. And I need to mark this. So I need to get a pen or a marker, and I'm going to mark right here because I can only go down this far. So I need to cut this up to here so that it'll fit into this sleeve or this slip joint. So I'm going to mark that now, and then I'm going to take this off and cut it. Okay, so I'm going to put my Sharpie marker, and I'm going to give myself about 1/4 of an inch off the bottom of this. So I'm going to mark that up about 1/4 of an inch. So you can see there, I need to cut off about 1 inch of tubing. So I'm going to take that back off. Now I'm going to use these cutters. These cutters are great for cutting this type of tubing. I can just cut that, put that blade right there on that mark, and just get it started, and then I can start turning that tubing around just like that. And as you can see, it cut the end of it just very quickly and very easily. Now this could also be cut with a razor knife. It doesn't have to be with these special cutters. There are also other types of special cutters that are designed for cutting this tubular, but a razor knife will work. Just need to be really careful that you're not you don't cut your fingers whenever you're doing that. So now I can put this drain fitting into, you want to peel off this label. We don't want that on there. That'll keep it from sealing properly. So I'm going to put this fitting here, and I'm going to just start this down, get it about just snug. We don't want it very tight. And then we need to take the P-trap loose again, and we want to take this nut off the top of it, and we want to put it on the tailpiece. So now we got our tailpiece there, we've got our nut on, we've got our cone washer, the taper facing down towards the P-trap. We're going to slip that P-trap up there like that, and then we can take and spin this tailpiece around, or spin this P-trap around to where it can connect to that drain again. And you may need to loosen up this drain here and pull it out, or push it back a little bit in order to meet up with your P-trap. So I'm going to get that tightened down, then I can tighten this piece down, just like that, and then I can tighten this top piece down. I get these pretty snug. I'm going to get them as tight as I can by hand, and a lot of times that's plenty tight for it to seal properly. But if you're concerned about it being tight enough, maybe you don't have as strong a grip as I do, but you can take a pair of pliers like this and put them on the nut just like this, and just give it a good twist. I'm going to just tighten that down just a little bit more. Alright, so now we have our tailpiece installed with our 3/4 inch drain inlet for our Spirit to be installed. So now we want to install our water line, or our main feed water supply valve. We called it our angle stop valve earlier. Now we want to install our angle valve, our supply line, to our purifier. So get this little bag out right here. You can see it's our angle stop valve. You'll have to tear it open and then pull it out. So now we've got our angle stop valve here that we're going to install, and we want to put it on our cold side valve. So this is the cold water line that supplies our kitchen sink faucet currently. Now if you're not sure which one of these lines are the hot or cold, what you can do is just run the hot side of your kitchen faucet, and then you can fill this, and whichever one gets warm to touch, that is your hot side. But we want to install this valve on the cold side. So at that time we would want to shut this off, shut that valve off right there, and then open up our kitchen sink faucet. We want to shut the whole hot and cold off both. Then open up the kitchen sink faucet handle and drain off any pressure off of the line. Then close it again. And now we're going to take this line off of our angle stop. So I'm going to take that off of there. And as you can see, this has a gray poly or plastic tubing on it that came on the faucet itself. It doesn't have this stainless steel braided, so I'm going to remove that just like that. Now I'm going to take this valve and I'm going to put it directly on the angle stop. I'm going to take this, tighten it down. That seals with a little rubber seal, so you don't have to get it extremely tight. Just get it snug. And then this will turn any direction that you want it to turn. And you want to make sure that this handle is crossways or with this line or parallel with the inlet and outlet of that valve, and that's in the off position. And then take this line and connect it back to the top. Tighten that down. You want to get that fairly tight. Now, as you can see, our angle stop valve is installed and in line with our cold water supply. So now we can actually turn our water supply back on. Make sure this valve is off. Then we can just turn our water on just like that. Turn the hot side back on. And so we're ready with water supply. Alright, so now we're going to start installing our Spirit Bluewater Purifier. As you can see, I've got the Spirit right here. I'm going to flip this around to the back, and I'm going to show you a few things on the back of the unit. You can see here that we've got all of our main connections on the back of the unit here. The red cap here is our feed water supply line. That's our city water supply. The tubing here coming out, that's our purified water connection. And then there's our drain hose that we will connect to our drain. And then we have our electrical line coming off the back. So I'm going to take this tubing out of the pure water connection. So you want to hold in on this little washer, push it against the unit, and then you can just pull that tubing straight out of the back side. Now you can just set that aside. And we want to take this red cap off of the back of the unit. And we want to set that aside. Now we're going to take this fitting. This is supplied in the installation kit. This is a John Guest adapter. This adapts from 3/4 inch BPS, or BSP, I'm sorry, which is British Standard Pipe Thread. And that's what this little connection is right here. This is 3/4 inch BSP. And it converts that BSP connection to a 3/8 inch John Guest or push lock fitting. So I'm going to screw this on, and we want to make sure, if you look right here, it's got a little rubber gasket right here. I want to make sure that rubber gasket is in there. And we're going to screw this directly onto the back of the unit. And then we just take a pair of pliers and just snug that up. It doesn't have to be really, really tight because it has a rubber seal in there, and it doesn't have to be too tight. Now we're going to connect this to our faucet via some tubing, and then we're going to connect this hose onto our drain. Now we were going to install this piece underneath the sink for us to connect our drain, and this hose will attach directly onto that piece just like that. So let's get started on installing these components. We're going to install our drain from our Spirit to our P-trap. And now we installed our tail piece earlier with our little side extension, our little side inlet barbed piece that we're going to attach the drain hose to. So we've got our drain hose here. We want this to kind of set like this here. Kind of create a little hump for the water to have to travel over. And that's why we have this piece in our installation kit. Now this little piece is designed to create that little hump. So I'm going to put that U-shaped piece just like that. Okay. Then I clip it into, you'll see there's a little slit here on the back, and I kind of open that up and put that around the hose. Do the same thing for the other side. And so now we have a U-bend that we're going to attach to the cabinet. You can see it's got a hole here at the top for a screw, and that's going to get screwed onto our cabinet up high like this. It'll go up as high as we can get it. So what I did is I took the hose back out of the U-shaped piece, and I'm going to screw this to the cabinet wall. I've got a screw there, already got it partially started. You can see I've got it as high as I can in the cabinet. Alright, so that's screwed onto the wall, ready to go. So we've got our little U-bend plastic piece installed, screwed into the wall, and we want to connect our drain to this hose barb. So we're going to take the hose and we're going to bring it back here, and we're going to drop it into that U shape. We're going to clip it in. To the sides, just like that. Okay, now we're going to bring this around the back side, and we're going to connect this to our drain. So we want to make sure we put our hose clamp on the end of this. So we got our hose clamp on there now, and we're going to take this and just push it onto that hose barb just like that. And then we take a screwdriver and we tighten down this hose clamp. So we just get that as tight as we can. So we got our hose clamp installed here. Our hose goes up through our little plastic U-shaped bend and then back down to the purifier. So our drain is installed and we are ready to move on to the purified water. So we've got our faucet connector right here that we're going to connect our purified water to. I'm going to take my tubing, push it up into that faucet connector as hard as I can, make sure it's nice and tight, snug, pull down on it to make sure it doesn't come out. So we're connected there at the base of our faucet. So let's connect it to our water purifier. So we installed the tubing on our faucet, and now we want to install it here on the back of the Spirit to our purified water outlet. And we just take that tubing, push it in, and we're ready to go. So we have our feed water valve installed, and now we need to connect our feed water tubing to that. So we're going to take this PEX tubing that's supplied in the box, and we're going to just push it into that valve to make that connection. And now we'll go to the back of the unit. So now we're at the back of the unit, and we want to take the tubing that we just connected to our feed water angle stop valve, and we want to connect it to this fitting right here, because this is our feed water going into the Spirit. So we're going to take that tubing and we're going to push it in just like that, and that's connected. So now we've got our feed water connected. We can move on. So now we have all of our connections installed. We've got our feed water, we've got our purified water, and we've got our drain going to our P-trap under the sink. And we just need to connect our electricity. But before we do that, let's turn the water on. So we're going to turn our water on now. You see our angle stop back here in the back, and I'm going to just flip that valve on. You should hear water flowing into the unit, and then it should stop. And just check all of your tubing and all the fittings here for leaks and make sure that nothing is leaking. And so now we have water under the unit and we're ready to plug it in. So I have an outlet here that my disposal plugs into, and that has a switch up top of the sink, and that switch controls that particular outlet just for the disposal. The dishwasher is hot all the time, so that's where the dishwasher normally plugs into. You may have an additional plug behind your dishwasher, and that's where your dishwasher plugs into, and then this outlet may be switched by the switch. Both plugs on this outlet may be switched. You'll just need to investigate that and find that out. But in my case, the bottom one here is hot and the top one here is switched. And so I'm going to just unplug my dishwasher, and I'm going to plug a splitter right there into that outlet. And now I can just plug my Spirit back into that plug where the splitter is going to be. But for the time being, I'm going to just plug the Spirit directly into this outlet, just like so. We're ready to plug our Spirit in. I've got the Spirit right here. I've got my water turned on. We've got all of our connections made. Our drain is connected to the P-trap here. I've got my purified water connected to my faucet. And I'm going to go ahead and install or plug in the outlet to the Spirit into my main plug. And you're going to hear some water flowing and some noise. You're going to hear the pump kick on. And then you're going to see some lights flashing here, some different things going on the front. But I'm going to go ahead and plug this in so you can see what it does. Alright, so now the unit's running, and you can hear it. Flowing water, you can hear the pump running. You see the orange lights coming on. And that orange light may flash for a while, until it rinses up completely and starts to produce really pure water. That orange light may stay on. So what you want is you want it to get to where it's just green all the time while it's running. I've got the faucet on up top at the sink, and so this unit will just continue to run like this. Now it may shut down on service, and if for some reason it does shut down on service, that's perfectly fine. What may have happened is there may be some air still in the system from the filters, and what you want to do is just unplug the Spirit and plug it back in, and that will reset everything and it will start this whole process over again. But right now everything's running great. The unit's fired up. It's starting to make purified water. I'd like to show you up here at the sink that our faucet is producing a good stream of purified water. If I shut this off, so we heard the unit shut down. Now, when the unit shuts off, you're going to see that you're going to have a green light here. And that's normal. But before we finish up the installation on this, we need to do a maintenance flush. So let's talk about the maintenance flush now. Now we want to do a maintenance flush on the purifier. So we've got it sitting here. I'm going to hold in the service button, which is the bottom, and you see these little holes on the side. Like there's one next to the filter. If you take a very, very small tool, like a paper clip, or I'm using a little screwdriver, you can insert it into that hole and push the button. And so like the filter light, if it comes on, you change your filters, you can just push that button in and hold it and it will reset that light, turn the light off. But we want to hold the service button in, so we've got a hole here next to the light. We want to hold that service button in, and we want to keep it depressed. Then we want to plug the unit back in. So I'm going to plug the unit in, and we want to hold this button after the light comes on for 14 to 16 seconds or so. And then you're going to see the two lights come on. So I'm going to plug that in. So our green light came on. I'm holding it 14 to 16 seconds. We got both lights come on. I'm going to release that. So after I release that, now we've got our two lights on, and we're going to wait, and this unit will kick into a service flush here in a minute. We should have all three lights on now, and you're just going to wait. Now you hear it start to run water. If you can hear that. So we're going to allow it to do that for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then what it should do, make sure you open your faucet. So make sure your faucet handle is turned in the down position, not up, but in the down position. And then we're going to let it do its thing for 25 to 30 minutes. And then the green light should come on. These two lights should go off. And once that is completed, you're ready to drink water. Alright, so our unit just kicked back into normal operation. The two lights went off. And now it's in just the on light is running. And the unit kicked on and is starting to produce water. You can see that up top here. We have water running out of our faucet. And now we can just close our faucet. And the unit shut down and is now in standby. So now we can take our Spirit and we can put it into the cabinet. Alright, so you can see we're installed, we're ready to go, and our Spirit is ready to go. It's got a green light in the on position. Anytime I open the faucet, the unit will kick on, begin to run. The service light may flash during that process, but in this case it didn't. Turn the faucet off, the unit shuts off. So we are ready to go. Alright, so that completes our Spirit Blue Water Purifier installation. It's all installed and ready inside our cabinet, and we can button things up and start drinking our purified water. I hope you enjoyed this installation video. Thank you for joining us at Bluewater.